Now I've got to start taking these seriously. This is so stressful. Right, here we go. This is a From the Outside Looking In podcast. I am Ricky Gleason. You are Fred Wilde. Before we start, I will mention the fact that we are now tied in with Sports Trade in Newcastle, which is the charity that myself and somebody else are taking up to Newcastle. Nationwide charity. They're effectively a charity shop that sells secondhand or donated sports good and equipment, and then uses the money from that to supply opportunities, sporting opportunities and coaching opportunities in the local area. I know you're a massive sports fan, so am I. And we've also teamed up with Welder Sport TV, who are a YouTube subscription service about various sports, but mainly Newcastle United.
Brilliant.
Yeah. And there we go. And we are finally doing a podcast. As I was just saying before on the bonus footage, you've been on my Facebook for ages.
Yeah, about 10 years, I think.
Is that what it is? Nah.
It must be. It must be coming up that long.
Nah, well, yeah, it's not far. Actually, I think it's about 8 years. I was living in Cornwall, and I found a lot of people that are on my Facebook now through the original Box and Banter group that got shut down eventually. Yeah, how it lasted so long is beyond me. Why it was called Box and Banter is beyond me. It was just, and now there's a Box and Banter 2.0. It's heading in the same direction. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing I can say. I love it. It's always been one of my most favorite groups, and I've added a few people to it, and people message me straight away like, that group is insane. Like, and one of them said it's not really about boxing, is it? It's like very, very loosely about boxing. Yeah. But from there, you've been on my Facebook. We've met in person.
Yeah.
And it became clear over the years that we've got a lot of things in common. Mm-hmm. Regarding our background, regarding issues that we face day to day. And from there, I've asked you a couple of times to do a podcast. I eventually tagged you in something the other day, and then sort of another mutual friend of ours, Ethan. I don't know if you ever met up with Ethan.
I used to be his line manager when he was a retailer. Yeah,
okay. So you do know each other then?
I know Ethan.
Sounds. So obviously Ethan's a big supporter of the podcast. He has been since day one. He's always inboxed me saying that you need to keep doing these, etc. And then I said, like, what should we talk about? And Ethan straight away said, you know what you need to talk about? You need to talk about the care system and your experiences in it, because both you and I were in care. So we'll go over that. Experiences with the law, because, again, you and I have got experiences with plods. A good one, parenting, how we deal with our own baggage whilst making sure our kids never experience it.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, that'd be a good one to get on. And then he also wants us to talk about memories of shit towns, which is, I mean, yeah, I could...
You've been to more than me. Have you been in the Navy?
Probably. Well, not just the Navy. I've moved around a lot. That's a big thing of my life. Yeah. I've moved around a lot. Navy, I haven't really been in that many shit towns, to be honest. We'll get onto that, but we will start, I suppose. We'll go care system. So, well, I was taken into care at 4 years old. I'm just going to tell this story, actually, because
I don't know it. So tell me.
No, do you not know it? So this is what I've just started writing a journal kind of thing. And this is one of the first things I started writing. My first memory, it might not be my first memory, but my first sort of main memory is of standing in a hallway, talking to someone through a letterbox. Yeah. And I in my memory, it might be completely wrong, I was stood on a milk crate, you know, the old fashioned, you know, that you used to get out, the old plastic things you used to get outside your door. I was stood on one of them talking to somebody through a letterbox. And then this is what I always remember. I was in Langley Police Station. We lived opposite Langley Police Station at the time.
Where's Langley?
Just outside of Slough.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Langley. I think it's on the way to London from Slough. Mm-hmm. So we lived right opposite Langley Police Station in a downstairs flat, I'm pretty sure, memory serves me correct. And I always remember being on being at a radio, you know, the old fashioned sort of CB style radios, knobs everywhere, blah blah. And this is how I know how old I was, because at the time I loved Adamant. Yeah, Prince Charming was in the charts. Yeah. Adamant was huge. And I was reading about this the other day. People don't realize for about a year or 2 years, Adamant was huge. Like, you know, he
had his own struggles.
Real. I mean, he's somebody that I always make. At the end of this, you'll realize why I'd love to talk to him at some point. Right. So I was on this radio, and I was talking to Adam Ant over the radio. Wow. And I was talking to him for ages. Well, this is the thing. I was talking to him for ages, right? And that was my memory for years. I always thought, I'm sure I was in Langley Police Station and they got me talking to Adam Ant once. It was only as the years gone by that I've realised that was me being taken into care. I'd been found home alone because my mum had gone out to score drugs. And I was talking to the police through the letterbox, or someone through the letterbox. They went off and got the police. I went to the police station to get me through it all. That I, was told that I was speaking. They've obviously made conversation with me.
So what year was this then?
Well, so I'm four. So we're talking 81, which is, and I've worked it out because I worked out when Adam Ant was in the charts, because that's when I was mad on Adam Ant. It's weird because I'd not forgot about it, but I just didn't click that's what that memory is until you're talking a few years ago. And all of a sudden I started thinking, I'd like to get my care record to find out why I went into care. And then I just got thinking, and I was like, of course I wasn't speaking to fucking Adam Ant. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
do you know what I mean? No, it was only then that clip was like, of course that wasn't Adam Ant. That was the police putting somebody on that radio to tell me I was talking to Adam Ant to get me through that. But like that got me thinking that Adam Ant, right, has got no idea that he got a little 4-year-old kid through the night being taken into care because he'd been left home alone because my mum had gone out to score drugs. And then I got taken into care, and I've got a few memories because I was so young. I was in care until I think 7, 8 maybe, when I came out and went back to to my mum.
So was it foster care or children's home?
So children's home to start with, I think. Yeah. So I was at Yew Tree Children's Home. I've got memories of being at Yew Tree. In fact, no, it would have been foster home to start with, and I've got not good memories from foster home. Yeah. This is the fucking 80s. I'm a little Asian kid. By all accounts, to look at, I'm an Asian kid. For everybody.
Still on, mate.
Right, to look at, I'm still Asian. Yeah, but you know what I mean. Like to look at, I'm completely Asian looking, but I don't come from an Asian background. All my family are white. I never met my dad, who was Asian. I have no involvement in Asian community at all until I met my wife years and years later. But at that time, the country. Racism was widely accepted. If you were brown, you got called a Paki. If you were black, you got called Nignog. It was part of the culture back then. Everybody said, go to the Paki shop. My mum was doing that until I was like 13, 14, saying, oh, Ricky, nip up the Paki shop for me. Do you know what I mean? It was only when I got to 13 or 14, I said, Mum, you can't say that. Like, you can't say that. That's what I'm fighting over. But again, at that time, a lot of people just didn't see it as racist, blah blah. That's a whole different podcast. We won't. It's too fun. But my point is, I didn't have an easy time in foster care. I remember being in one place specifically where the kids that already lived there, I don't know if they were foster children or whether they were the normal family, but they were pissing and shitting in my bed, or like pouring water in it and then telling everybody that I was pissing in bed. And I remember getting in trouble, like even now, do you know what I mean? I can remember like arguing with people saying I haven't done it, and you have, blah blah. And I think we lived near some fields or something, and there was shit in my bed that they were saying was me. And I also remember I remember one day being sent to bed, being put into bed, and whoever the foster mum was peeled the covers back to put me into bed and saw that it was wet and sort of realized what was going on. And that's my only memories from that. My uncle said that there was a point where eventually I did a shit and smeared it all over the walls, which is...
Well, you might as well get hung for a sheep as a lamb.
The psychology of that is, if you say I'm something, that's what I'll fucking be. So I didn't have a good time in foster care. It's one of them things as well that I've only just started thinking, I wonder how much that affected me throughout the years, because you sort of block a lot out, but subconsciously I got passed around a lot as well. That was a big thing. I think I went to like 4 or 5 different homes, which is never good. And then 8 years old I came out to my mother's care. I
know all about that one.
Care is a strong word, and that's not being disrespectful to my mum. About my mum. My mum was a tragic figure herself, so the mistakes she made, they weren't born of malice. She never meant to be a bad mum.
Absolutely.
She apologized to me, not long before she passed. Well, she took her own
life. They need support.
Yeah, my mum was a kid. She had me at 17.
My too, mate, exactly the same.
She had me at 17. She had a little brown baby. At 17, Dad ran straight away. He ran off straight away. He got a white girl. He got a white girl pregnant, which obviously wasn't acceptable in his community at that time. So he ran off straight away. She'd come from a horrible background. I mean, my childhood was rough. Hers was fucking disgusting. The people that were around her childhood, as I'm sure you'll know what I'm talking about, they should be strung up and fucking killed. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, as much as I say, you know, I'm always honest about the fact that she wasn't a very good mother, but I'm always honest about the fact that she never meant to do anything. It was never intended. She'd had a terrible upbringing herself, been shown awful ways to raise a kid, and
that's why these things are generational, you know, in many ways. And you and I, hopefully, have largely broken that kind of connection, but you cannot create somebody or mold them in a certain way and then expect them to be something else magically when they turn 18. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, and I was thinking about this as well. I was thinking about the fact that I do have a lot of unresolved issues because of the fact that my mum committed suicide, because it meant that now that, you know, I felt this, especially once I had my kids, once I got to a stage where I was like, actually, I'm doing all right in life and I'm not a bad person and I'm intelligent and I've got a good job and I do the right things. I haven't got the opportunity to turn around to her and say, you know, when you all painted me out to be a terrible human being because I was in and out of prison in my teenagers, what were you expecting to happen to me? Like, how did you think that you was going to give me the childhood I'd had and for me to turn out absolutely fine? Do you know what I mean? And this isn't, you know, because I know that some of my mum's friends will be watching and stuff, but they know that we always have honest conversations. This isn't about criticizing or anything. It's just there's unresolved issues because I've never had to have that. I've never been able to have that conversation. But, you know, like I had a stepdad at the time who used to paint me out as a tearaway because I was a tearaway. Do you know what I mean? I was constantly in trouble. But at the same time, I think to myself, well, you were a fucking arsehole. You know, I was growing up at like 13, 14 with you in my house. So you're not my dad, and you were a fucking arsehole. So why did you think that slagging me off for being a thief in my late teens? You used to pay me to go and pinch wheel trims for his cars and things like that. Do you know what I mean? So,
I mean, effectively, as far as I'm concerned, it boils down to this: that if people say that you have free will, free choice, and you do to a point, and there are good and bad people, then you can literally do whatever you like to a child, and supposedly, magically, they'll be okay later on.
Yeah.
No, there's a program, I think it was on Netflix or Prime, about making monsters.
Yeah.
People turn out to be serial killers or killers. You create environments for the worst in people to kind of fester as a child.
Yeah. I mean, and some people are bad. Do you know what I mean? There are some people that are just bad people. But again, you know, and this is sort of why we started doing the podcast, me and Earl, because I'm always sort of, when you see that person begging on the street, and it's easy to say, you know, you see like 18, 19-year-old and they're a fucking drug-addled mess, begging on the streets, and people judge them. I always think to myself, all right, they shouldn't be there. We've got to try and say to them, look, you've got to do something about this because it's on you at the end of the day. But at the same time, I know 100% they haven't had a nice time growing up. Nobody has had a great time growing up and then at 18 decided, oh, fuck all this, I'm just going to go and beg instead. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't happen. So, you know, when you see a young person and their life's a mess, I saw something the other day with Jimmy Carr where he's saying, and this sort of leads on to why eventually, you know, I had to sort myself out, because he's saying, like, where do you draw the line? And the point, you've got to draw the line at some point and say, right, well, this is it now. Doesn't matter. But, you know, he's pointing to the fact that when you see a 16-year-old and they're an absolute mess, guarantees they've been fucking surrounded by absolute chaos all the way through their lives. Do you know what I mean? And there's an obvious reason why they're like that.
I totally agree with you. Sometimes I'm a little bit disdainful of people like that. I recognise I'm damaged in ways that I can't even probably describe properly.
Yeah.
But, you know, and I've been in positions where I've been homeless.
Yeah.
But I've never, ever felt like a victim. Does that make any sense? I've always kind of fought back and fought against it.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say victim. I mean, it was time I definitely felt sorry for myself. I definitely thought, this is bollocks, man. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, do you know what I mean? But yeah, it's a weird one. I never thought that was my lot ever. Do you know what I mean?
No,
even at I'd always think just round the corner kind of thing.
You know the stats as well as I do for what I call cared for children, now kids that have been in care and the foster system. They're atrocious.
Yeah, I've got some in front of me, so we'll go over that. Like, I don't know, in fact, but just before we do that, what was your situation with the care? I came out at 8. I went back in briefly when I was 15 and I turned into an absolute tearaway. And I remember when my mum said I can't handle them anymore, they put me in some foster home. I stayed there for a bit. But by that age, I was already like, well, I'm too old to be here. I fucking live, I was living at my mates' houses anyway. Yeah. Even though my mum kicked me out, effectively, I was feral. You know, I was always staying, my best mate, Nassi, I was always staying at his house. I was always staying at this person's house, that person's house. So when I fucked foster home off, the care system didn't come looking for me. They weren't bothered. Do you know what I mean? So, and that was my sort of care in a nutshell. 4 till 8, came out quite damaged, went back in 15, tear away, fucked it off. Everybody just let me get on with it, never chased me up. So what was your crack?
So I suppose, I mean, my mum was she had a motorbike accident when she was 16, meningitis. So she's one of the reasons why you have to wear a crash helmet now. Her case was brought up in Parliament.
Right, okay.
So they hit a tree, God knows how fast, she cracked her skull open, had multiple injuries, and then had brain problems from there onwards. And my dad, that was his second marriage, and he was a bit of a predator with damaged women.
Right.
So he married her. He must have been 30 odd. She was 21. We were born. He was a bastard. He used to beat the shit out of us.
Yeah.
Well, out of me, actually, not the others, because I was so young. And then moved from this little sort of sleepy town village actually near Aylesbury to Hemel Hempstead when they split up.
Right.
And Hemel's it's a shithole anyway. We can come back to that.
Yeah. But
it just opened up whole avenues of exposure to all kinds of abuse I won't go into right now.
Right.
And then at some point, so between 5, when I came into kind of came to the attention of the care services because the conditions were so appalling. It took them 4 years to take us into care.
Right.
And the conditions in that house were the worst they'd seen in that county. They were horrific. I got my records a couple of years ago, and even reading through it, I was like,
right. I need to get mine. You'll have to run me through how to do that again.
You know, you don't expect it because you hardened yourself like I have, but it is emotional. When I'm reading about this poor, you know, I fucking feel for that little boy.
Do you know what? You want
to just look after him, don't you?
Do you know what? That's exactly what it is. Like, so even, sorry to jump in,
but
that's exactly what it is. When I look back now, I think, especially because I've had my own kids, you know, when I look back and I think about, you know, me, I'm not thinking about me at 4 years old talking to somebody through that door. I'm sort of looking from the outside in, and I'm thinking, that's a fucking 4-year-old, man. Somebody needs to, exactly that. I just think the poor little bastard. And I look at all, you know, and then I look at the fact that that little boy is now being passed around from house to house, you know, and now he's got kids shitting in his bed and stuff. Do you know? And I just think I get really angry at the world. I just think, you horrible bastards, somebody scoop him up and take him away from all that, will you? And it's like what you said. It's not like I'm looking at me anymore because I'm all right now. But I look back and it's like literally, I imagine just waking up. Hayden wakes up tomorrow and all of a sudden he gets dragged into care and that happens to him. It's just it's fucking horrendous. It's fucking, anyway, sorry, just when you said that there.
It's that child you feel sorry for, not yourself.
Not myself. No, you've got that bang on, mate. That's honestly, that's as fucking spot on as it gets. Excuse me.
But I mean, I went into care, so I was 9, I think, when I went into care the first time. So Mum had a meningitis again, so a proper brain injury and all kinds of illnesses. And my brother was 7, my sister was 5. Yeah. We all got taken into care. Vicky didn't have a great time. Richard didn't have a great time. I went to a foster parents I kind of got on with. Yeah. And then within 11 months, they'd sent us back home to my mum, and she was clearly not capable of looking after us. So 6 months later, we're back out there again. Yeah. Richard and Vicky to different foster parents, brother and sister. Me to back to the same people. And I was there until I was 17. I mean, obviously, I had my issues, and you know, foster parents back then were not really prepared for what they had to do. No. So I had a brief period of time, so a year in a children's home as well. But I don't really remember much about that, to be honest with you, other than it was pretty shit. But I do think that, you know, I like to think I'm a strong person. I made my way in life despite the care system. Yeah. But I do think that possibly, not so much my foster parents, but having a stable environment helped me along. Because that guy, my foster dad, who died when I was 26, 27, he's the father in my life. So that man I loved and respected. And I think that probably gave me a bit of a leg up, you know? Yeah. Something to cling to, someone I could love, who I trusted.
Yeah, I can't say I've ever had that, to be honest.
Yeah, I get that totally, mate.
Yeah. I can't say, there's no, I mean, there's my uncle Jeff, who's passed away now. And I was always very close to him because we were so similar, because he was sort of the tearaway of, you know, my mum's generation. And he got me, as in, you know, when everybody else was slagging me off, he was the person that sort of got me.
Because he'd been there.
Yeah, because he'd been there, and he was always sort of my last resort, as in when I'd exhausted all my other fucking opportunities, he would get a phone call. Me and his son are close anyway, because weirdly, like he settled down with a black lady. My mum had me, and me and my cousins are the only sort of non-white people in a very white family. Which it's not that we're not close with the others; it's just that we always had that little thing in common. So yeah. I've always been, and my cousin's the same age as me. He's a year older. We're both boys, kind of thing. So we've been close. And yeah, I was close to his dad, and he was as close to a father figure as I've got. But even so, that was sort of sporadic. I was with him I would sort of turn up there for a couple of years, disappear, come back a couple of years later, blah, blah, blah. But I never had that one sort of solid bit of stability until I joined the Navy. Fucking 32, you know? Yeah, well, and I met my missus, and she was the one person that sort of stuck with me through thick and for a lot of thick. Through thin, a lot of thin, me behaving like a fucking wanker.
I think my foster dad had at one point, I think I was 17, I'd started self-mutilating.
Right.
And I was obviously getting pissed at the time as well. The local club would serve anyone. So I remember there was one time when I think I'd taken it too far, and he definitely had they were going to send me away. I came home, pissed out my face, and I was self-mutilating, and I don't remember what the argument was about now, but it was a kind of crunch point for him. Where he said, well, go on then, if you want to die, kill yourself. I don't know why he said it, because it just wasn't like him at all. But I got a bread knife, went right like that, and the blood just drops out my wrist.
Right.
And I just remember him, he started crying and saying, why are you doing this to yourself, mate? Why are you doing? And I knew then that man loved me.
Yeah.
And that was a kind of sort of a turning point in that. Some of the self-destructive stuff that was going on. I mean, I was still getting in trouble with the police and whatever else, but I knew somebody loved me.
Yeah.
And not just, but I knew my mum loved me. She had the same problems your mum did. She probably wasn't fit to be a mother, quite frankly.
That's it. The love for my mother was never in doubt. She adored me. She adored me, and I loved her as well. That was never ever in doubt, ever. Not one point in her. And we used to fucking fall out all the time. And people used to say to me, "Why are you forgiven?" And it's like, well, it's my mum. I love her. Do you know what I mean? And I know that towards the end, she sort of idolized me. In my mid-20s, she used to sort of, because I'd be off around the country, when I would finally come back after a couple of years, she'd get really sort of excited about the fact I was, but she used to get pissed and play these Irish tunes about the prodigal son returning kind of thing. It was a big deal for her. Do you know what I mean? So the love was never in doubt. She just didn't know, most of all, she didn't know how to look after herself. Which meant that it was impossible to look after me. And that's right until the end. Her whole plan in life, looking back, her whole plan in life was she wanted a Prince Charming to come along and rescue her. And you probably know as well as I do that if a girl's plan is that she's desperate for a Prince Charming to come along,
she's going to get Prince Bastard.
She's going to get a fucking wanker turn up and pretend he's Prince Charming. So yeah, the love was never in doubt. And then, going back to with us two, the care system and that, you were saying, I want to talk about yourself harming and stuff, because it's something that I've never done. It's one of them things that I don't understand.
So I had so I'm still in contact with him. I know where he is. A mate of mine at the time that was doing it, and not only did it not occur to me, I didn't even know about it. I'd never heard of it. Yeah. So I'm growing up with my foster parents in a sleepy little village in Hertfordshire, and it is a sleepy little village. Yeah. 6 miles away from the nearest town, about 6 miles away from Luton, in fact.
Right. Okay. Well, Luton's a shithole, isn't it? So.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't mind Luton, but I understand what it is. And yeah, he was doing it. And there was something just so captivating about, I still can't even get to the bottom of it now. If I'm being totally honest, I did something a couple of months ago. I did one. Yeah.
What I get told, because I spoke to a couple of people who do it, what I get told is that it because of the pains inside, right? You can't, there's no sort of there's no physical feeling. And when they cut themselves, it's a physical feeling. So they can sort of equate it to pain, if that makes sense. I mean, like I said, I've never done it, so I don't really understand it.
For me, it's not quite about that. I struggle day to day with the humdrum boringness of life.
Yeah.
That makes any sense.
The pain of existence is how Jordan Peterson describes it. Some people struggle with the pain of existence.
I find it boring, and anything that releases massive emotions of sex, violence, even if it's violence against myself.
Yeah.
These things make me feel alive.
Right, got
Even
it.
doing that, it wasn't releasing pain, it was life.
Yeah.
So it's always been sex and violence for me. Those two things they're life-affirming things.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I feel dead. I feel emotionless. It's like a flat line.
Yeah. Sound right. That's sort of, we would get onto that because that's like mental health. Well, in fact, we go over the stats that we were talking about. With people in care, so it's less than 2% of the population go into care, right?
Yeah.
Have you been to prison? You've been to prison, haven't you?
No, I skated by the skin of my teeth.
Right. Okay. So I've been to prison. I've been to young offenders a few times. Only ever petty stuff. But this was where I started looking back, thinking actually, as much as I didn't think that the stuff about being in care was relevant because it was so early in my life and I'd kind of forgotten about it. If I then look at the stats afterwards of what happens to kids that have been in care, I tick all those boxes. So there must be a link there. Do you know what I mean? So it's less than 2% of the population go into care. 27% of adult prisons are people that have been into care. So it's over a quarter of people in adult prison have been into care. Once you go to young offenders, over half of young offenders in prison at that time have come from the care system. So this was what somebody pointed out to me. It's 1% of the population are making up 50% of the under 25 prison population. So it's just how somebody isn't looking at that and throwing everything at it. Do you know what I mean? Like how that isn't having the fucking kitchen wall thrown at it by the government is ridiculous.
So what they'll do is they'll look at the cost of doing something about it. But what they fail to look at is the cost of not doing something about it.
Yeah. I think you posted something the other day in a political group just saying people, they never sort of think about the long-term value of something, you know? So if it's cheaper to do it now, but they just do it now, even though it might be more expensive to do it now, but in the long run, it will make sense. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
my car, I know this sounds daft. My carpets, right? I've just got a new house. I'm carpeting the house, right? Back in the day, I would have been like $5.99 a fucking square yard. That's what we're getting. Just get the carpet down. This time around, I'm like, no. We're getting good carpet, right? And it might skimp me now, but it means that I won't have to replace that carpet in 3-4 years' time. Do you know what I mean?
That is an absolutely fantastic analogy for electing governments. We elect $5.99 a square yard.
That's what we do. That's what we do. We elect $5.99 a square yard.
That's why they're not paying for mental health. Thinking about the next election.
Yeah. Do you know? But this is actually what's happened with me. I thought, no, you're spending fucking 30 quid a square yard, because it means that you won't have to replace the carpet.
Saving long term.
You know, over the long term, it means I can relax. That's what it means. It means I can relax, Fred, and just fucking enjoy my house. Do you know what I mean? So right. When we come to mental health, 45% of people that have been in care have got diagnosable mental health issues, which would be yourself. And you are. Do you suffer? Are you diagnosed with depression? I know we've.
No, I've got clinical depression at times, anxiety, and borderline personality disorder.
Right. And how does that sort of manifest itself, like at its worst?
Well, the anxiety has only really been really bad the last couple of years. So that means I just can't get out of the house.
Yeah.
And I can't get out of the house because I feel so fucking anxious. But when I feel anxious, I feel violent.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm being threatened and attacked.
Right.
Depression is what it is. You know, I've learned to deal with that. Just, kind of write it out.
Yeah.
Borderline stuff, which kind of makes sense now that 25 years later, I've finally been given a diagnosis. At its worst is you do what you call split on people. So everything's very black and white. So certainly in relationships, like my ex-wife, you either not idealize them. They can do no wrong. You can only do wrong. Anything going wrong in a relationship is down to you.
Yeah.
But then you can do something called splitting, where you don't give a fuck. Don't give a fuck. And these things can happen multiple times a day.
Right.
So it's confusing. Oh, and also emotions are really, really strong.
Yeah.
So someone once described it as having no skin and someone rubbing sandpaper on it. And that's what your emotions are like.
Right.
Yeah, it's tough. It's difficult to manage.
What about drink and drugs?
I self-medicate with drink.
Yeah.
I've never really done, I've experimented with drugs. It's not my thing. And I also recognise absolutely that I could have, if I go into that environment, I'll just go straight over the edge.
Into what environment? The drugs?
Drugs.
Yeah.
I would have gone full tilt right over the cliff.
I should imagine so.
Yeah. So
that's always been my issue. Whatever I do straight off from the, especially with drugs, straight off from the outset. Too much.
Nothing in moderation.
Yeah, no, yeah, I don't do anything in moderation. So,
No, I don't.
it's why you obviously know I've stopped drinking now.
Fair play, mate. Kudos.
I'm fucking fastly approaching a year sober.
That's amazing.
It's made the world of difference, mate. It has made the world of difference. But I sort of recognise that I am that person. If I have one drink, I will drink myself unconscious. I simply cannot possibly go out and have. And I know you like red wine. I know you're drinking red wine now. Will you drink yourself to sleep tonight?
No.
So you sort of do stop at a point.
I stop when I know I've had too much, or I'm about to have too much.
Right. Okay.
And I'll make sure I have 3 clear days at least every week.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's not ideal.
It's not good. Still,
it's not good, but yeah.
But I've kind of fought hard for that. I recognise I drink way too much. I know I do. Yeah. But when I don't drink, I have nightmares. So those nights I have shitty nightmares every time. And it's not about the drinking. It's when I've been, periods of several months sober, and the nightmares are every fucking night. So it stops me from overthinking stuff. It stops me from having nightmares.
Yeah.
Plus, I like it. I don't really.
Hey,
give a fuck.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? If it's not a problem, it's not a problem, man. You know what I
don't want to give up.
It wasn't a problem for me for a long time. Just before I joined the Navy, there was a 2-3 year period where I loved my life. I was drinking and smoking every single night. Yeah, it was my late 20s. I was drinking and smoking every single night, and I was training really hard in the gym. It was at my absolute. I was my absolute. I joined the Navy at 32. At 31, I was at my absolute peak.
And I remember. You were younger than that.
You what? Sorry.
Oh, you were younger than that when you went in.
No. So I joined the Navy a week after my 32nd birthday.
That's the cut-off point, isn't it? It's T8.
No. The cut-off point actually for a lot of the branches is the day before your 38th birthday, which people don't know. You can join up quite late.
It used to be. It was 33.
It used to be earlier, and then they've sort of relaxed it. And they relax it each more and more, don't they? But yeah, I joined at 32. I mean, I remember when I joined, it was when I was drinking and smoking all the time, and I joined up, and I was doing loads of boxing training at the time. And I remember we got there, and out of, I think there was like 45 of us, and I was in the top 10 fittest, and I was the oldest there by a long way. But that was my life then. I could drink and smoke every single night, sweat everything out in the gym. I could run around,
Not anymore.
Not. And then this is it. When I started, when I first started trying to sober up, I kept telling myself, you just need to get back to where you were. You just need to get back to that stage where you were training every day. And then all of a sudden I thought, Ricky, you were 29 when you were doing that. Like, what right have you got to think that even if you stop drinking, I've stopped drinking now. I'm training again. I've got a Daft White collar coming up in June. So I'm training for it now, but because I know that I'll never be that fit again. I just need to get as fit as what I can now. Wasted all those years.
No, I think I've been the fittest I've been in my 40s probably. So I do I've got a turbo trainer set up, so I'm on probably 4 hours a week on that.
Right.
Which is phenomenal for aerobic fitness. But again, the injuries, I've got a lot of little tweaks and whatever else going on that are never going to go away.
You know what? I'm still in good nick. Like I've never had a long-term injury. I've never had a bad injury ever. Not once.
Had loads, mate. Loads.
I'm training now. We've got this. This is a little plug for the sports training. For the sports training in Newcastle. We've got. We're also. I forgot to mention Fit Club in Newcastle, Highbridge Street, just off Big Market. That's the place that got me fit. I started going there for a drugs charity. Long story, but they got me. Clive, his name is. He got me really, really fit. He does these boxing nights up at the Civic Centre in Newcastle, and the money goes to charity. White collar format kind of thing, but it's run really, he does it like a beautiful professional. It's not like the UCW where they just fucking wheel you on, wheel you off. Everyone's getting smashed. This is black tie, 3-course meal, dinner service and all that. Bagpipe players, the lot. It's a really nice affair.
So everyone can watch you getting smashed, dressed up.
Yeah, they do it for charity. The charity that he's doing it for in June the 3rd is Sports Training Newcastle. Sure. As soon as people were signing up for it, I told Runji, my missus, that I'm not fighting again. I'm not training anymore. I'm not sparring anymore. I can't be bothered with any of that. So as soon as I saw people were signing up to fight, I was like, go on then, I'll sign up. But what's happening is I'm fighting my mate. Hopefully, if I'm there or thereabouts, we've got a spar to see whether I'm at the right level. But I'm fighting my mate, Jake Coughlin, who boxes amateur for the Navy. I think he's coming up to 30 now, so he doesn't do a lot anymore. But when we were on a QE, we used to spar quite a lot. And the sparring was basically him practicing his defense, me doing it for my fitness, chasing him around the ring.
Oh,
yeah. One day I stood on his foot and he tripped over. So obviously...
That's old school.
Well, obviously, I then told everybody, I dropped Coggy in sparring. You know, and I was getting strangers that he didn't know to walk up to him and be like, "Are you Jake Coughlin?" And he was saying, "Yeah." Like, "Oh, you're who Ricky Gleason dropped in sparring." So he's always said, if I get a chance, like, I'm getting you back. Like he's always said, you owe me a full blown spar. But because this has come along, I've said to the owner, "Look, can I fight my mate?" So he's a better boxer than me by a long way. So if I've got any chance of getting through this 6 minutes, I've just got to be able to put it on him from beginning to end. So I'm getting as fit as I possibly can. That's why I'm training now.
Chase him around.
That's what I want to do, is just get on him and not give him any breathing space at all, and see whether I can just put it on him for 6 minutes straight. That's the plan.
But stepping on the foot is an old school boxing trick. If you have a mover, you step on their foot and give an uppercut or a hook.
Yeah. He's a mover. He leans back a lot.
That's a bad thing to do in boxing.
He's gonna be watching this, hopefully. He leans back.
What's his name?
Jake Coughlin. Yeah.
Jake, don't lean back.
A couple of people have said
underneath, never back.
He leans back. A couple of people have said this is what you need to do against people that lean back, and they've given me some tips, so just so that he knows.
You watch Kevin Kelly and Hamid to see what you do with people that lean back.
Who? Sorry, Kevin Kelly.
Kevin Kelly and Nazim Hamed.
Yeah.
So Hamid.
It was great. It was an absolute barnstorm. I watched it not long ago. It was a barnstorm fight.
Brilliant.
You just go for them, which is exactly what Chavez did. Chavez at the end? That's exactly what he did. He just put it on him from beginning to end. So Jake Coughlin, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put it on
Barrera.
Barrera, sorry, yeah. I'm going to put it on Jake Coughlin from beginning to end. Right. Anyway.
Yes, moving on.
Moving on. Ethan wants us to talk about experiences with the law, which, you know, again, we were talking about that there, the fact that so many people from that background end up in trouble with the police. I was a serial young offender. I started getting arrested at 14, 15. I thought it was normal. I was petty as you like, you know. Lots of criminal damage, lots of scrapping in the street, theft, bike thefts. That was what got me into trouble. I became a thief. You know, I was robbing bikes. I was then sort of at my worst when I was really, really down and out. I was snatching handbags, smashing car windows, and taking anything that was on the front seat, mugging people, burgling a lot of shops. That was what I got sent to prison for, was shop dwellings. At my very scummiest, I have done houses. It's probably the one. That's the one thing where I'm like, oh, that's where I got as low as it fucking gets. And my morals. It's not a justification. There's no justifying it. I've served my time. I'm certainly not proud of it. What I will say though is that at that stage in my life, I hated the world. I was 17. I was homeless. My life, you know, all the shit that we've just been talking about before that. My life had always been shit. You know, my mum had thrown me out the house at 16 because she'd shacked up with matey that I hated. Do you know what I mean? And then you start to think, I was all over the country, and then I stopped caring. Do you know what I mean? And it's at that stage where you're just like, oh, fuck it, I am going to fucking do this.
There's a quote by Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
And he said, if you're the same person at 50 that you're at 20, you wasted 30 years of your life.
Yeah.
So I stopped feeling too bad about the stuff I've done. I mean, it's in the past.
Yeah, I on the Bob Mills podcast, we sort of said that, you know, what does he do about the stuff? Because there's a lot about that show that he made that he said that he's not proud of now.
Yeah.
And we both sort of said the same thing. It's that thing about Jimmy Carr. At some point, you've got to draw a line over everything. It serves, you know, and I've beat myself up at points in my life and felt really guilty and not been able to sleep at night. But at some point, it becomes of no purpose to anybody. It's not helping anybody else, and it's not helping me. And you've just got to sort of say, well, I fucked up.
You should be more worried, I think, as an individual, if you don't feel bad about some of the stuff you've done.
Yeah.
Coming from our environments, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because you're not moving on.
Well, it's you know, and it's those people that they're still doing the same thing now. Yeah. You know, if I see somebody that I grew up with, so some people I was an arsehole to some people growing up. Some people were arseholes to me. That's just the way of the world, how it was back then. You know, a lot of the people that I was an arsehole to are fine with me now because they see that I've changed. I've apologized. I've moved on in life. Yeah. They see where I am. They know that, you know, we all change. If I see somebody that used to be an arsehole to me and they've changed absolutely nothing, it's when I see people that were arseholes, not necessarily to me, but, you know, they were knobheads back in the day and they're still knobheads now. And there's, you know, I see them on Facebook and they're still, you know, they're getting into trouble with the police still. And I'm like, I see a few people, they're calling each other out for fights. And I'm like, lads, we're 40 odd years old.
Yeah, but
what are you doing?
Because I still get, I mean, I had a bit of a run-in at Weatherspoons about 3 or 4 months ago.
Right.
and it all fucking fired up. And it kind of there's a power in violence.
Yeah.
I kind of miss sometimes. I have to be honest.
Yeah, well, I mean, I always liked scrapping growing up.
I like
throughout the Navy, you know, you know, I give a bit of a reputation in the Navy for he loves to go out on a drink and have a scrap.
Yeah.
You know, nothing nasty. When I was on the QE, that was pretty much how I felt. It was a depressing time on the QE. You know, we was all away from our families on a ship being built in a dockyard, and you know, I wasn't averse to a friendly scrap in a local pub. You know what I mean? But nothing nasty. Just
I don't know. I got to the point where there were mates of mine who wouldn't go out with me, and some of those were in the Marines.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, and they were like, "No, if Fred's going, we're not going out tonight," because it was always going to kick off.
I'm not like that.
At all. Terrible.
I'm only small as well, so there's only so much I can get away with. I'm only 5'6".
Size of the fighting the dog, you know that.
What are you, like 6'3" or something?
6'2".
6'2", sound. So yeah, experience with the law. What I was, like I said, I was a serial young offender, constantly getting arrested. It was just part of my life until I just calmed down, man. I got to 21 and just I was worn out from being arrested all the time.
I was still going right into my 30s with the old bill.
Oh, was you?
Yeah, I was terrible. So I mean, I used to get into bits and pieces as a kid because obviously we're running right around the streets. My mum had no control.
Yeah.
And it's probably a blessing that my foster parents were on a farm, literally in the fucking middle of nowhere, a mile and a half from the village, let alone the town. So I couldn't get into any trouble there. But I hit about 17, like I said, the self-mutilation was going on, and I was angry. I was really angry.
Yeah. And
then I decided to leave them just before my 18th birthday and move back to my mum's in Hemel. And Hemel's quite a violent town, or it was anyway back in the day. And it was like a duck to water.
Yeah.
You know, I fucking loved it. And I didn't give a shit about the consequences. And anyone that calls violence or that kind of environment antisocial does not understand the environment. It's entirely social. All your friends are doing the same stuff. It's an undercurrent, a different community who live by their own rules. There's a social kind of level there. Everybody knows what's going on. Everybody respects people in the right way, as long as you can project yourself. And yeah, it was always fine, always. So I tried to get into the army twice and they wouldn't let me in because the criminal record was so extensive. And I escaped prison by the skin of my teeth. I went in there it was one of those kind of pivotal moments in my life where I was in court. And again, court was social. You've been meeting people down there. You're like, oh, all right, what are you in for?
Yeah. That was a big part of my young offending was you go to court and you'd know everybody, you know, you'd be bumping into your mates and stuff. And yeah, it is. It's a community of it. So it's like a little sort of.
It is. It's not antisocial at all.
No.
Otherwise, you have no mates.
Yeah, it's the same people, isn't it? It's the same people at court all the time.
It's a different lifestyle. But I went in there, and I was down for ABH at a point, I think. And the judge said, I would have no hesitation in sending you down if it wasn't for the fact your wife was pregnant. She wasn't my wife, she was my girlfriend.
Yeah.
And I sort of sat there and I thought to myself, I didn't calm down completely after this, but I thought to myself, I can go two ways here. Do something else, or I can take this route. And I wasn't scared at all about prison. I wasn't scared at all about having that kind of criminal life. But even then, I knew that was a choice to make.
Yeah. And
my passion's always been learning and knowledge.
Yeah.
So that's when I started to put myself through college to get to university.
Right. And that's, because you're well read. I know that you read all the time, didn't you?
All the time.
Didn't you say, like, if there's a subject that you don't know about, you just get books on it and read up on it? And
there's very little that doesn't interest me. So, I haven't read up like Haynes motor manuals and shit like that because I'm not really that interested beyond the actual workings of the external combustion engine. I'm not that bothered. But especially history, I'm voracious. I love it.
Yeah, I know you love history. I remember I added my friend Michael Davidson, just if he's watching, I met up with him recently, but he's a massive history buff. I remember you got talking to each other, and the next minute, because he's massive about Roman history. I mean,
that's right. Yeah, me too.
It was one of them. I think you were testing his credentials, and then suddenly you realise he genuinely knows what he's talking about.
So, and
he's another one. He's just a sponge for information. Do you know what I mean? If something interests him, he just sort of soaks up all that information about it. What's your degree in? Is it in history?
Yeah, it is. So I went, I'm still getting in trouble with the police at this point, early 20s, the odd fight here and there, but nothing drastic. And I put myself into because I got thrown out of school when I was 16, 17, A-levels.
Right.
I got fucking thrown out. And I went and did an access course to university, which I don't know if you can still do, but it's kind of a one-year course that gives you access to university.
Yeah, you can.
In 95 or so. Moved up to Manchester, no, Liverpool. I got into Liverpool University and I hated it. So I was back down south pretty quickly and then went to King's in London.
Yep.
For ancient history.
Right, okay.
So again, it's that kind of Roman, Greek, Byzantine history. And I get the feeling, because it's one of the best universities in the country, I got in because I was a mature student and had a quota to fill. Yeah. Not that I give a shit. I loved it. So there's no lecture theatres. It was all small classrooms. It's a really old building just on Strand in London. So
yeah,
I loved it. I love learning. If I could have done that as a career, just learning, I would have done.
I wish that I loved learning because I don't. Do you know what I mean? I can't be asked.
Well, I kind of get that because I'm looking at all this stuff I've got crammed in my bonds. When I'm dead, it's like a bubble. It might as well not fucking be there.
Yeah, that was freaking me out recently as well.
Dying.
Just that's been really freaking me out.
Yeah, lying in bed. My head up.
Because I started thinking to myself, like when you've been knocked out. Have you ever been knocked out? I've been knocked out.
Yeah, once.
Yeah, 2 seconds. That's my wife back. Hey, my sweet. I'm mid podcast. You get knocked out and you sort of lose a couple of hours before it. And I was like, God, whatever happened in that?
Well, no, that's a bad one, mate.
Right. I just thought, whatever happened in that? It's just absolutely pointless. Do you know what I mean? Like, there was no point in it. My cousin just dropped dead recently. He's alive. Oh. He dropped dead. He was driving. He was on a school run, and his wife, his wife Rebecca was driving. I think this was literally a couple of weeks ago, and
was it her driving that gave him a heart attack?
I don't know. Maybe we'll find out. No, he passed out. He collapsed, and the hospital said that only 6% of people that have a heart attack like that in the street live, and it was through her knowing CPR.
Okay, here's an interesting thing for you coming straight on from that. Scandinavian schools teach CPR.
Yeah. So there's a big
and that goes up to about 17 or 18% because they all know how to do it.
Yeah. And they were saying that it was only because she knew how to do CPR that he's alive now. But the point is, he can't remember any of that day.
Oh, I'm not surprised.
But that's what freaks me out because I was thinking, well, so when I die,
that's it.
That's it. All those memories just gone. But there's a sort of mutual of ours, I won't say their name or anything. They posted recently because their old man had died, and they said that they really believe that the purpose on life is to be your kids' memories.
Okay, I know you mean.
Yeah, and I really like that. And I thought, well, that does make sense. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I've started writing stuff. So I did a lot of family history research because I wanted to be kind of validated. Do you know what I mean? So my life is something, and I wanted to understand what my background was.
Yeah.
So I did a shitload of family history research, and I've started writing stuff down about my life because all I know from these people who lived, say, 150 years ago, is their name, how old they were, and what they did for a living. Yeah. That's it. I don't want to just leave that.
Well, yeah. So I've started writing my journal, which it turns out I started writing a journal, and the first thing that I started talking about was the Adam Ant thing. I've wrote my first memory, and then I'm like, am I just going to write my life?
You do it because in 150 years' time, someone might be in the same place you are, and that might give them an anchor.
Yeah.
So I know that my art will live beyond me. No one's burning my pictures; they're good, right? But I want to leave.
Oh shit, you do art as well, don't you? Fucking hell.
I do art, Ricky. Yeah.
You do art as well. I've seen it as well. It's not just shit art either. I mean, it's banging.
Good
art. It's fucking. It is. But you got anything next to you? Take us on a little tour. Right.
All right. Yeah. All right.
It's on a little tour, yeah. So, man of many talents.
See that one?
Yeah, sort of. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I see that. Yeah.
That one?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's really good.
Yeah, they're not bad, mate. So
being able to draw.
No one's burning them.
I'd love to be able to draw. So basically, I'd love to have fucking motivation to learn.
Can you see me?
Yeah, I can see you. Can you not see me?
The hell am I then? There you are.
Yeah, you got me back? Yeah. So just...
Yeah, but I ain't got the motivation. I've not done a painting for nearly 3 years now. I don't have the motivation.
Maybe you need to get that back. Anyway, moving on. So is it do you think it's learning that stopped you getting in trouble with the police? The sort of moved you on? Or do you think you just grew out of it like most people?
No, I'm a simmering kind of, I'd say a very slowly bubbling volcano now. Anything. At some point, if something falls in there, I can still go off.
Right. Well, that's going to lead us on to, parenting.
Oh, yeah.
So how we deal with it? Because you've got 2 girls?
No, I've got 3 girls.
You've got 3 girls. How old are they?
30, but 29.
29 and
15 and 11.
Right.
There might be a few more in there, but we won't talk about that for the purposes of the podcast.
Right. Okay. I've got 2 kids. This was the question I'll read because I wrote it down word for word. What Ethan had asked: how we deal with our own baggage while making sure our kids never experience it. As soon as I read that, I thought, well, that's exactly what I do. You know, my parenting is basically making sure my kids don't experience any of the stuff that's left me with so much baggage. I just want my kids to have a nice childhood, you know.
So how do you find that there are some things that challenge you getting over that barrier? Is there something?
What I found recently is that I think so. Hayden's very, very, very gentle, real, you know.
I love his photos, stuff of him dressing up and his little suits and stuff.
That's him. That's not me. He's eccentric.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, he asked for suits for his birthday.
Yeah,
you know, it's not in his nature. His sister bullies him. His sister hits him. You know, I don't need to worry about her at school get bullied. And this is my point. I've been. There's a massive part of me that's like, oh, I really want to nurture that with Hayden. I really want to make sure that, you know, there's none of this, you have to toughen up, son. You have to toughen up, blah, blah, blah. You know, but then there's a part of me that's like, well, actually, you know, am I only doing that because I heard that so much as a kid? Because I was a real gentle kid. Do you know what I mean? And there's times where I think, you fucking arseholes. Like,
I think I was by nature.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? There's times where I think to myself, you fucking arseholes, why did you turn me from that nice, gentle kid that was, you know, that was writing poetry and just, you know, all I wanted to do, well, I was just such a soft soul and I remember it. And then I just turned out to be a horrible, horrible fucking 15, 16, maybe not that age, but 17, I was horrible. And there's a point where I look back and I do think, yeah, like I turned out like that because of you fucking wankers, not because of anything I did.
I'm in 2 minds about it, to be honest with you, because I was a bird watcher, loved to eat birds, even as a kid, and I was painting. But do I want, now I feel now that I'm equipped, if I get any kind of problem, I'm fully equipped to deal with it.
Right. I wouldn't say
I'm not saying I've come across those skills in a way that I'd want, but I'm fully up to, you know, it's threat analysis. I feel, every time I go out the door, I feel like there might be a threat, which is not good. It's quite stressful. And I don't want it for my kids, but yeah, if the world goes to shit tomorrow, I feel quite confident.
Yeah, it's getting that balance right. And so, like with me, there's part of me that's like, I really want to nurture Hayden and make sure that, but then I think to myself, well, actually, you know, really, you should also sort of toughen him up a little bit because it's all good and well making Hayden, you know, that soft nature, but the rest of the world isn't. There are some arseholes, and at some point they might start on him.
But it doesn't have to be physical.
No, I know, and this is the thing. I was thinking about this. I maybe don't give him enough credit for his personality because every school that he's been to, they say he's one of the main characters in the classroom, and actually, just personality can get you through a lot of life. I've got a friend in the Navy. He's muscly. He's you know, good looking. He's always been able to pull the birds and stuff. Like, you know, nobody gives him any grief. I was really surprised when we got talking when we were deployed once, when we were talking about fighting. He just went, "I've never had a fight in my life," and I was like, "What?" And he said, "Oh, I've never had a fight in my life." And I was like, "What do you mean you've never had a fight in your life?" And he said, "Yeah, I've never ever been in a fight in my entire life." And I saw your face then. I just couldn't understand it. But he's never needed to be in a fight.
He's likable.
I mean, yeah. I don't know.
So I had a friend.
He's a nice chap, I suppose. So yeah, it does make sense. But yeah, just with that whole sort of with the raising of the kids, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because
I struggle.
What do you struggle with?
My temper.
What, with your kids?
No, only in as much as it comes out as impatience.
Right.
Clearly, I've never done, you know, I love my kids. And that part of my past that I'd never repeat. Things like, so I consider marginal issues. Oh, I feel like this and I feel like that. And I instinctively link back to my child and think, really? So I struggle with empathizing with them when it's what I would consider to be a trivial issue.
And it's not really relative to them, is it? Do you know what I mean? Like, I know what you mean. You're saying, well, I had it tough and you, so fuck.
But it's real, it's real to them.
Yeah, it's real. It's real to them. That's the point. Is you're like, oh well, I don't feel sorry for you because I had it harder. Well, they don't know your feelings, so they just know how they feel. Do you know what I mean? So,
absolutely agree. But there's also a part of me saying, well, I don't feel any sympathy for you because you feel a bit upset by this. I was starving at your point in life, so I do kind of struggle with it. I really do. I don't want to toughen them up. I struggle feeling any empathy for it whatsoever.
So do you think your baggage then is sort of negatively affecting? Do you think it's something that has? Do you know what I mean?
That's a good question.
Tough question. But do you think that it's sort of not continuing the cycle because you're clearly not? But do you think the baggage that you've got from how your childhood was is a negative in your parenting rather than using it as a positive? Big philosophical question, that, Fred.
I think it's a very good question. I do think it's a negative.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I compensate, but I'm also very affectionate.
Yeah. None of us are perfect parents. Fucking no matter how.
No. But I'm also very aware. One of the things I do is I'm aware of what I say. Like you said about that adamant thing.
Yeah.
That you remember things as kids. You remember them.
Yeah,
so
you do. Yeah.
Aware that whatever I say, they can remember 15, 20 years later.
Yeah, I mean, I was 4.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's a memory of mine. It might be a skewed memory, but it's still there in my banks. Do you know what I mean? That's a memory of mine. I remember being in Langley Police Station, and I remember I was talking to Adam Ann. And for a long time, that's probably shielded that memory, the way those police set that up.
Brains built that up as well.
They have probably saved me a whole heap of heartache because I didn't realize until a few years ago that I wasn't talking to Adam Ann. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, it's mad, isn't it? Like, it's only now that I realise imagine if at 4 I'd known what was going on, if they'd sat me down and said, "Oh, right, well, you're here because you've been left home alone and you're about to go into care."
Wow.
Blah, blah, blah. But they didn't. Whatever they did, they were saying, "Oh, you're here to talk to Adam Ann." And that my memory of that night
it's not so bad. Until
I worked it out, my memory of that night for almost all of my life was like, I remember talking to Adam Ann on a fucking police radio. How class was that?
Yeah, and I
do you know what it is? And because of Adam Ann's problems, I fucking love to talk to Adam Ann. Do you know what I mean? I would love.
Yeah, he's one of those tragic figures, though, isn't he?
He had
bipolar.
He's had real bad mental health issues over the years.
I remember him wandering around Camden when I used to manage a superstore down there.
Yeah.
And he was wandering around with a shotgun or something, was he?
He was wandering around. I think he was in a dressing gown or something because Samantha, someone off of EastEnders, I think it turned out. I think it was her. It turned out she
down to see her.
No, she went out to get him, I think, and then it turned out I might have got this completely wrong, but I'm sure that it turned out they were friends, and that's when I found out that he's got severe mental health issues, or that he's had severe mental health issues. He's on tour at the moment, and I think that he's doing all right, kind of thing. But yeah, he's one of them figures that I think it's his mental health issues that stopped him going on to be an absolute superstar, because for 2 years he was a global superstar.
Yeah, he was.
Really good looking man. Really.
I've got a friend of mine. He's her sort of number one. She loves him.
Yeah. I mean, you see pictures of now from when he was a young man, and you're like, whoo. Anyway, that's my gaying off. Right. We'll just get on to this then. We'll end it with memories of shit towns. I don't know. It's just...
Well, I could literally go into depth about Hemel Hempstead, which is a shit town. I don't know.
I don't know Hemel Hempstead. Whereabouts in the country is it?
Okay, so you've got London, Watford, Luton. It's kind of in between all of those.
So it's just north, is it? Just north of London?
It's North London, Overspill. It's Hemel Newtown. It wasn't.
I fucking hate all of London, mate. Like all of it.
It depends. I had a good time in London when I was at uni. I had a good time. It's not someone I want to raise a family. Don't get me wrong.
I was there recently, and it's just no way to live.
It's too expensive. How can you live? It's too expensive to live.
It's too expensive. There's too many people.
Yeah.
It's just it's awful. I was in the centre, like Piccadilly Circus. You couldn't move. Do you know what I mean? You couldn't work out what was road and what was path, and yet buses were coming along. Everyone's going in every direction.
But that's like every capital city in the world, though.
I think London is one of the most densely populated capital cities in the entire world.
Honestly, you need to get your ass to Mumbai if you think that.
No,
that's not the capital, but fucking hell.
I mean, I'd like to go to India, but I don't think I'd want to go Mumbai or anything like that. But yeah, just all of London. So yeah, I was born in Slough.
Shithole.
absolute just a cesspit. It's so bad. It's so bad.
But is it because of the kind of, we're talking about.
It's always been bad, Slough.
Is it the underclass of what you can get yourself into that's bad?
I don't know. It's just a bad place, isn't it? It's just an awful.
Do you know, I've never been there.
Have you never been? It's just a shithole. It's
the name of the town. Why would I want it?
One, it's called Slough, which sounds horrible.
And
all it is, it's somewhere that you drive through to get to the. There's nice places all around it, and you have to drive through Slough to get to those nice places. And I'll tell you what I hate. Well, not hate. The thing that I find the weirdest about Slough, right, is if you want to buy a house in one of the shittest areas in Slough. So essentially you want to buy a house in the middle of a ghetto that's fucking crack infested. It costs you over £250,000. And I'm like, how is that fair? Like, do you know
because it's commutable to London.
Because it's commutable to London. So it's charging an absolute fortune. So then, right, what happened is this is how I ended up in South Shields, which again is another sad story. It's my life's been too sad. But this is like sort of leading up to when I became a tearaway. So at 12 years old, I am being moved around London women's refuges with my mum. She was in a really, really violent relationship with somebody that she went out with that she knew was racist, which meant that my life wasn't very fun. So it's one of them. It's like, what on earth? I look back and think, what the fuck? Yeah, that's another podcast. But yeah, so we was being moved around all these different sort of women's refuges, and we was in Chiswick Women's Refuge, and
Essex. Is it
Chiswick? No, it's London. West London, I think, maybe.
I think it's Chingford.
Yeah. I got woke up through the night and told, right, that's it. We've got to go. There's only one space in the country with a bed. There's a bed for a sort of woman and child for a woman's refuge. And it was in South Shields. And the very next day, I lived in South Shields. And let me tell you, Fred, South Shields is a shithole.
Is that what your connection is with South Shields?
That's my connection with South Shields. So I moved to South Shields overnight at 12 years old. And then I stayed in South Shields, and I went to school in South Shields, and all my friends are from South Shields, and I lived in South Shields until I was in my teens, and then on and off with my wife, and then backwards and forwards on my own.
You've not taken on the accent at all, have you?
I did. I had took on the accent until I was 17, and then I moved back to Slough. When I was homeless, and then that's where I got into I'd started getting into trouble in South Shields, but Slough's where I got into all my serious trouble and where I started getting sent to young offenders. So I moved to South Shields when I was 12. South Shields is one of them places where there's people that have lived there their whole life and they don't see any of the trouble that's there, and they only see the coastline and they're like, oh, it's a beautiful place. And then there's people like myself that have lived there that are like, it's a shithole. Do you know what I mean?
It's like a Labrador for a shit on the beach.
It's just awful. It's just, and my mates are going to be watching this, and some of them get frustrated with me because they like it because it's their hometown. And technically, it's my hometown as well.
I like Hemel.
I'm saying it's a shit. I'm always in Shields. I always visit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm moving the other side of the river.
You feel at home there.
But I was straight in the other day visiting friends and stuff. Went for a meal down at the seafront, and I always have a little drive around, a little nostalgic drive around. Like, let's have a look at this place. Let's have a look at that place. But I'm just like, this is so grim. Like, nothing ever changes there. The lighting's poor. It's freezing. It's just yeah.
So I lived in Aberdeen for a year.
What's that like?
The Granite City. So it's on the east coast of Scotland, and it's always raining.
Yeah.
It's always grey, and I fucking loved it.
Yeah, right.
I loved it.
Other places that I've lived, I'm just trying to think of other places that I lived. When I first left South Shields as a 17-year-old, I hitchhiked to Peterborough. That's a shithole.
That's an army town, though, isn't it?
No, you're thinking of. Where are you thinking of?
No, Peterborough's got a barracks there.
Has it?
I'm sure it has.
Maybe. I don't know. All I know about Peterborough is it wasn't very nice.
So I lived in Manchester for a year.
Right, okay.
So in between, I got into Liverpool University, which I told you I hated. I had a friend, told me, he lived in Manchester.
Yeah.
And he got me a job in the porno shops.
Right.
So it's before DVDs.
Right, okay. VHS.
Yeah, so there's 13 or 14 of these porno shops dotted around Manchester and Bolton. He got me a job in those. I lived in Manchester for a year, working in porno shops, which you can imagine, you don't mean the best. I mean,
I've always wanted to know, though, what kind of man walks into a porno shop? Like, I'm not talking about your trendy sex shops in Soho, because I've walked into them and you see lots of trendy. I'm talking about sex shop. Do you know what I mean?
Some of the stories. So we're talking literally lock, stock, and two smoking barrels, sex shop kind of thing.
Yeah. That's what I want to hear about.
That's exactly what it was like. So they'd move you every week from shop to shop because it was a rip-off. You used to give people blank videos in brown paper.
Yeah.
And they'd come back, go, I've been ripped off. You're like, yeah, that was that bloke last week. It was ripping everyone off his leg. But for another 30 quid, I'd give you the right stuff. I can't give it to you for nothing, obviously. So there was that kind of environment. It was grim because some of the stuff people were asking for was fucking wrong, you know? I mean, really wrong.
Yeah.
But Manchester is the biggest shithole I've ever lived.
Were you thinking of Aldershot?
Aldershot's got a barracks. I thought Peterborough.
Aldershot. I mean, Aldershot is another. I've never lived there, but I go there quite often. I got all my teeth done in Aldershot because that's where the
literally done.
That's where I had. I've had 30 grand of work off the forces. They gave me 30 grand's worth of dental work because I had really bad teeth when I joined up. So I've got 2 veneers in. I had a brace on for 5 years. I had a brace on for. I got all that free, and they only do it in Aldershot. So I'd have to go to Aldershot all the time. Like, I've been in Aldershot loads, and Aldershot is just. What I can work out about Aldershot, right, is it's a massive army. Like the town is the army barracks. It's an army. It's an army barracks that is actually a town.
Yeah.
And it's just full of people in the army, Gurkhas. Really poor white people. That's it. There's no in between. That's all there is. There's soldiers, Gurkhas everywhere, and just not very, poor white people. And I don't mean that in a racist way.
No. Well, they're all. It's a terrible. Oh, love you. You're all right. What are you doing? You come to say hi.
Hi.
You don't normally bother. Come and say hello to Ricky.
Who's this?
Hello.
This is Daisy.
Hi, you're right, Daisy.
Hi.
We're doing a podcast.
Bugger off now. See you in a minute. Have you eaten? All right, jacket potatoes. I'll do one in a second, yeah? All right, love.
That's parenting. Fred, wrapped up in 30 seconds.
I didn't say hello. Like, well, you didn't bother over Christmas when you stayed here for 3 days and stayed in your bedroom.
You've never done that before? What are you doing that for?
What are you doing?
She's probably heard you shouting and thought, is he just fucking in there shouting at himself?
It's curiosity. That's what it is.
Yeah, what's he doing?
I can't see what's going on.
Sorry, shit towns. We'll name a few more. I went up to live and work in a place called Grange over Sands in the Lake District.
Where?
In the Lake District, Grange over Sands, it's called.
Naval base. Obviously.
No. This was before I joined the Navy. This was after my mum had died. I'd gone down to Slough, and as I was sort of moving back up north, my uncle was living in Grange over Sands, which is a little village / town village, I think, in the Lake District. And it's not the Lake District, it's not the touristy bit of the Lake District, it is the bit where people from the Lake District live. And I've got no qualms with going on record, and I'll fucking back myself to the hill. I've never been anywhere so racist in my whole entire life, to the point where, I mean, there was nothing subtle about it. You know, I was with my mate Justin, who's a 6'2" skinhead white guy, and we would walk into pubs. Obviously, I've always had a skinhead. Do you know what I mean? You know, as westernized looking as you can get. We would walk into pubs, and people would just be like, "Who's that packy at the bar?" And the pair of us were just like, "What the fuck is going on?"
Well, I don't think. I wouldn't say you look particularly Asian. They must have fucking had the radar right.
I mean, I looked at it, and I mean, it was overtly just race. I mean, it's the only place that I can say that. Those motherfuckers were racist, like, do you know what I mean? And then from there, and this is the place that I went. I got a train once. I was meant to be getting a train to Newcastle. I'd heard about this place off all the locals because they call it the end of the line. And I got the wrong train. And instead of going to Newcastle, it took me to Barrow-in-Furness. And I reckon out of everywhere that I've seen in the country, I was only in Barrow-in-Furness for about an hour. I reckon that is the worst place I've ever seen in the country. I remember getting off, and I rang my uncle and I was like, I've got the wrong train. I'm stuck here. Can you come and get me? He was like, sound, yeah, I'll be an hour and a half. Just got to get ready. And I was like, so I'll find somewhere to go for a pint, Jeff. And I'll tell you where I am. Do you know what I mean? Because I never had any qualms about walking into a pub, sitting on my own, having a pint. And I walked around this town, and I was looking at some of these boozers, and I was looking around town, and I rang them up, and I was like, "Fuck that! Come and get me from the train station." And it was just grim. I mean, and then I read about it, and it's not got a great reputation. Real bad drug problems up there, heroin problems.
Okay, I suppose my last place will be, so it's within the UK. And I wouldn't call it a shithole, but it's the only place in the world I've ever felt unsafe.
Where's that?
Belfast.
I've been.
I took a day trip to Belfast
Yeah.
whilst the Troubles were still going on.
Right.
And I walked into a pub. So it's me and a girlfriend who was Scottish, and we got a ferry across from the west side of Scotland.
Yeah.
Well, just for a day. I don't know why we decided to do it, but I remember walking into this pub and trying to pay with an English £5 note. And he went, "Not with here, mate, not with that," in an Irish accent. And I thought, fuck. And as soon as he said that, everyone in the pub turned around and took a look. I thought, I don't feel safe. I do not feel fucking safe.
No, I've only been there once. I was on a tall ship and we pulled in at a dockyard, and I remember this was way before I joined the Navy, so there was nothing that I needed to worry about there. But I remember when we sailed in, as soon as we got in, 2 guys just came along to just ask who we were. But it wasn't "Oh, you're right, who are you, what are you doing here?" It was a straight up, "Who are you, what are you doing here?" Do you know, and it was our skipper was like, "Yeah, we're a youth organisation," and he said that's what happens when you come to Belfast. They want to know who you are, what you're doing here, and it's not. They're not messing about. They're not.
No, they're not.
They're not pretending to be friendly to try and work you out. They're letting you know, who are you.
Yeah,
you better be here for a reason, kind of thing. I don't know what it's like now. I'm probably never going to find out. I'm probably never going to find out. I won't lie. I've been Dublin. I've been to Dublin.
No, I've never been. My family's from Ireland. I've never been there.
Amazing place. Ridiculously expensive. And I've only been there with the Navy, so I was only there to party. But what a place to party. It is. Yeah, it's an amazing place. I'm trying to think of anywhere else. Northolt, that's where I grew up. I moved from Slough to Northolt. When I got released from care, I got released to Northolt. And Northolt's another one of those places that I moved away from when I was 12, obviously, when I moved up to South Shields. And then I didn't go back until I was 17, 18. And when I went back, I remember getting there and thinking, is this where I grew up? This is rough as fuck. But when you're a little kid, you don't realise.
No, you don't.
You've got no sort of, you don't realise that you don't realise you're in a rough area. In South Shields, when we finally moved out of the women's hostel, we went to a place called Hope Street, aka the Bronx, which at the time was, no doubt about it, it was the roughest estate in South Shields. My childhood there, I think we were there for about 2 years. Best 2 years of my time in South Shields. Amazing. Being a kid on that rough as you get council estate was unbelievable.
But there's still communities which we don't have many other places.
A proper community as well. We all knew each other. All the kids looked after each other. We'd fight amongst each other, but we'd fight amongst each other. Anybody else would come in and try and fight us. It's like, there's 40 of us. Do you know what I mean?
It's not so much that. I mean, there might be all kinds of rough stuff going on, but people are looking out for each other.
Yeah.
There's still a set of values. They might be different from what people expect them to be, but they're there.
I went to, before we end, because we will end in a second, otherwise we'll just be fucking talking all night.
Ramble on forever.
Yeah, I went recently talking about that community thing. My friend lives at the Pilsden community. You ever heard of the Pilsden community?
You told me about this. That's down in Devon, yeah?
It's a Christian community, and they've got a farm between them, and they've got all these flats and everything. I went to check that it wasn't a cult. It wasn't a cult. And I remember getting there being really dubious, thinking this is weird. Like, what are they doing living like this? And when I left, I remember thinking, that's how it's supposed to be living. Like, I looked back at history and it's like, that's how we used to live. We all used to live in small communities where everybody had a job to help each other and everybody looked after each other. And that was it. That's what they did in this Pilsden community. They've got a big mansion. They've all got rooms in it. Then they've got little flats around the grounds, which they've all got a room. They've all got their own job. Some of them go rotas. Do you know what I mean? So sometimes you're up at 5 a.m. milking the cows, or you're on dinner duty, or you're on so-and-so duty, you're on this duty, you're on that duty. And they live there in a community, and it's a Christian community. So, well, I say that there's prayers on a night time. You don't need to go to them. Obviously, I stayed there. I didn't go because I'm not religious, but that wasn't looked down on at all. And I remember leaving thinking, what a really nice way to live your life. What a lovely way to be.
So every individual is relevant and important, has a role.
Yeah.
So that's important. There was an old family. Yeah. So it takes a community to raise a child, not a family. Yeah, that's also important. It's how we should be living.
Yeah, there was a family living there with kids. There was a family living there, and they said that they sort of rotate. They always have a family living there, and that family were then moving into one of their old properties that they were buying it off them, and then they were going to move another family in, kind of thing. Yeah. I just always remember. I've been there a couple of times. It's a wonderful place to go.
That's awesome.
And chill out, and it's probably how we should be living, but we're not.
We're not.
We live in ways that create the likes of you and I, Fred.
We're beautiful creatures, Ricky.
Yeah. And on that note, mate, I'm going to say
Yeah.
thank you. I'm going to say thank you. I'd like to do some more with you at some point about various things.
I've got to make baked potatoes for the 15-year-old now.
Sound, you go do your baked potatoes for 15-year-olds. And until the next time, Fred, it's been a pleasure.
Pleasure, mate. Thank you.
All right. Cheers, mate.
Take it easy.